So the question is, how is the first time after having a baby? And, all right, buddy, you see the camera? What's going on? We are gathered here today. Say hi, guys. Welcome to a new video. This is gonna be a lot of great questions, probably about you, Hudson. There's a lot about birth, that's for sure. Hey guys, welcome into a new video. I am bringing back the Girl Talk series. Before this channel became a joint channel with Nick, I had this series going where just us gals sat down and talked through all the things that I feel like you would talk about at a sleepover or when you're hanging out with a mom friend, or, you know, you just talk about as girls. So we do have a guy in the room, sadly, but not sadly. He's the most adorable little boy in the world. I feel like I'm gonna look back on this video and just look how little he is and I'm gonna cry. But anyway, you guys sent in really great questions that I'm gonna be honest about in this video. I think a lot of people assume because I'm a Christian that I'm not gonna open up about things like intimacy or like body image or anything like that, because there's like this stigma around all those subjects and being a Christian. And I wish that I had another girl that I could just look to on the internet and get advice from, or at least hear that they're honest in a video, and just be able to kind of just sit down and escape and get my questions answered. So I hope that I can be that for some of you today. There's a lot of like fear-based questions that I hope I can put your mind at ease. So we're gonna do that, aren't we? Yeah. The first question is, I'm pregnant with my first and considering home birth. Any tips or things you would change? I'm actually going to show you guys a clip of my midwife that I asked pretty much this exact same question to, just so I could give you guys any tips directly from somebody who helped me throughout my whole journey. So here's what she had to say. I would just love to know, for those who are going through their first pregnancy, what would be one encouraging thing that you could say or piece of advice?
Do your homework. Yeah, and Chelsea did her homework and it showed. Yeah. So I just got to watch Chelsea be amazing. But hire a doula. Take a childbirth class, no matter where you land for care. If you're in a hospital, you're at home, you're with an OB, with a midwife. Everybody can benefit from comprehensive childbirth education. So not just like a little, class that's a Saturday at the hospital where they're going to say, this is where you get hooked up and we do all this stuff. That no, you want like the whole picture of like, what are all your options? And then hire a doula who's with you start to finish, somebody to kind of be your guide through it. Yeah. Aside from just your medical care is really beneficial, especially for a first timer.
Thanks. So the next question is from my friend Michelle. Honestly, just how you balance it all. Like, how do you do it? I feel like I hardly have it together with just me, Hubs, and her other Tab, she said, her dog. So I felt the same. I had no idea how I would be able to do this, and I'm still figuring it out. But I think I just have to kind of lower my expectations of myself and not try to do it all in one day. I feel like I could do that with my previous situation of not having a baby, but now he is what matters, and productive work is taking care of him, And I feel like having that mindset as a mom is just so important, because otherwise we're going to sit there and beat ourselves up throughout the day because we didn't do it all. And sometimes I'll watch my favorite YouTubers' stories and they have like 4 or 5 kids, and it seems like they're just literally doing it all. And I just have to remind myself, like, they've gotten the hang of this. They know kind of what they're doing, and I'm new to this, and they probably have help around the house. They probably have people that they hired to help with certain things. At least that's what I would assume so, and I think some of them have shared that. So I have to kind of rearrange my life in a way, and also maximize my time. There's like a lot that a lot of people, I think, assume you can't do when you have a baby, and you just kind of bring them along for the ride and things that you do in life. And a lot of times, like, newborns just sleep. So we're just figuring it out as we go. Also, another thing that's really helped us, meals seem to take a lot of time from our day if we don't plan for them, or if we don't have some sort of situation that's just easy for us. So I'm really excited that we're partnering with HelloFresh, because you guys have seen them partner with us throughout the years on our channel, and we use their subscription food service And it's the best because when mom eats good, baby eats good, and it's just so convenient for us. Just having food that arrives at your door is very affordable. And let's show them a little clip of us cooking. HelloFresh cuts out stressful meal planning and prepping so you can enjoy cooking and get dinner on the table within about 30 minutes or even 20 minutes with the quick and easy options. And I love that the food just comes right to our door. It's so convenient. Everything comes pre-portioned and ready to just put on the grill or put on the skillet or wherever. And it's made our lives so much more simple, especially with a baby. So if you want to try HelloFresh, you can get 14 free meals, which is a great deal. And you can go to HelloFresh.com and use code HURST14 to get 14 free meals plus shipping. Again, go to HelloFresh.com and use code HURST14 to get 14 free meals plus free shipping. So Nick is putting Hudson down for a nap because he was getting a little fussy. How's your body image now compared to before being pregnant with your little nugget? Okay, so before pregnancy versus now that I've had the baby. I feel like this is just probably something that I think people who've had babies kind of feel across the board. There's so much emphasis on looks and how you look and taking care of your body properly. And I feel like we live in such a sexualized culture where you must look good all the time and presentable, and you gotta have the round butt and the toned legs and the skinny stomach and everything to just feel good about yourself, or that's what you see influencers looking like and all of that, celebrities. But there's so much purpose outside of how you look, and there's so much purpose in bringing life into the world, having a baby, to where I don't even really, yes, I think it's important to take care of yourself and be healthy and everything, but I kind of don't even really focus on that so much anymore. I'm not even consciously in my mind thinking, if I walk into this place without any makeup on and my mom pooch is showing a little bit in a tighter tank top, I'm not really thinking, what are they going to think of me? I'm thinking, heck, I had a baby, and that's really cool, and I love him so much, and if my body has to take a hit in any sort of way for that, then I will, because he's just such a blessing. So I don't know if that's really a great answer to that question. I just feel like our culture focuses way too much on body image and how we look and body positivity and all of that, which is good in a healthy amount, but too much talk about it, I feel like is kind of obsessive and kind of just, it takes the focus off of the real joys of life. That's just how I see it. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody else who's had a baby out there. Was the postpartum bleeding worse or better than you expected? So I didn't even think about this, honestly, before I had Hudson. I didn't even think about the fact that I would be bleeding for several days or weeks. So I didn't have any expectations, but I can say that my bleeding was very normal. And that means that pretty much everything went right and everything was very seamless, and that's not always the case. So when it came to bleeding, I bled for maybe a week, which is pretty normal. It just kind of seemed like a heavier period. All was well, but I also didn't tear or anything, which was another question, so I'll just put two answers in one. Any tips for first-time moms? I'm due in October with my rainbow baby. Oh, that's so exciting. Congrats to you. I have several friends that had experienced miscarriage and then a few months later got pregnant and had their baby around the same time as me, and we've been kind of going through this together, and it's really cool to just see just how special everything is. I feel when you go through loss and then you experience the actual birth of your next baby, it's just so cool to see them go through that, and just that joy can be had even when you're probably still mourning that loss. It's wild. I would just say what I really needed to hear, I think, in the first few weeks was to not stress myself out so much. There's so much that you could easily just be thinking in your mind, oh my gosh, is my milk production enough? Is my baby getting enough? Am I enough for my baby? I feel like I'm not mentally here all the time. What's going on? Your hormones play such a huge role in everything, and you just have to kind of allow yourself to feel the emotions, but give yourself a break. So if somebody's offering to care for the baby for like an hour so that you can shower, or you can go to the store, just drive around in your car, take that, because it is so good for your mental clarity and just getting a break. I needed to hear that in the beginning because, oh my gosh, I drove myself insane sometimes, just feeling like I had to always be holding Hudson or always be feeding him or always whatever, because I just didn't know his signals or cues or anything like that. I felt like I was just this like feeding machine, and I was so tired. Getting help, like saying yes to help, was amazing, because once you get good sleep and you have food in your belly, it's amazing what you can accomplish. Tips for leveling out your hormones after birth. That's a good question, and I'm still learning all of that. I would say the biggest thing that's been helpful before I even had a baby was making sure that the products that I was using didn't have any like toxins in them. So that means that sulfates, parabens, fragrances, any of those can really be harmful to your body. There's a long list of others. There's like the dirty dozen list that you want to make sure that there's not in your products. This is probably foreign language if you don't use clean products. I would recommend that you do some research though, because the fragrance under products can hold hundreds, if not thousands, of chemicals that they don't have to list in the products because it's like a proprietary, so they can just put whatever underneath the fragrance label, which is sad, but that has helped my hormones in general. After birth, the oil Progestins Plus by Young Living, I have a lot of oils because I definitely love oils, but Progestins Plus is an oil that you use for your progesterone. It was formulated by a doctor and actually has like wild yams in it, progesterone from wild yams, and several other oils, things in it to help your progesterone levels. So obviously that's just one hormone, but it's helpful to get that back into your system because progesterone levels aren't necessarily like leveled out right after birth. No hormone is really leveled out after birth. So I would say what really plays a huge part is really great sleep. If you can get that oil, Progestins Plus, I'll put my link down below if you guys really want it. And then what else? I just think that eating well, of course, is like so huge. So I'm still figuring this out, and I think that my hormones have definitely not hit all of the levels that they will at month like 3 and 4, because I think there's another crash around then. So we will be navigating those waters as we go. But I think the basic things of just like staying healthy or being as healthy as you can is helpful for hormones, and just taking the extra sleep when you can. This is a really good question and something I'm still learning. It says, since you've had a baby, when do you do your devotions? I feel like I'm just trying to find little cracks in my day to be able to read or write or anything like that. And I used to look at moms who said, I don't know, I'm just kind of like finding little times throughout the day to read or listen to an audiobook or whatever. I'm like, really? Like, you don't have time for that? I had no idea when I was saying stuff like that and assuming things. Because as soon as I wake up, Hudson needs to eat. As soon as he's done eating, he needs a little bit of playtime, and then he needs to be put down for a nap. And then like the cycle keeps going throughout the day. And so I have to find time to work it into the cracks in my day. So it's never at the same time. A lot of times I'll listen to the Bible in the shower, or I will play music and the audiobook out loud in the car. And I wish it wasn't always like that. I feel like it's harder to just like find time to just sit down, have a book, open it up and read. But I will tell you, it's great to go to a coffee shop, have your baby in the car seat, or bring like the little sleeper that they can just like lay in and read there, because usually an environment like that puts them to sleep, or if they're not asleep, they're just kind of chill because there's like music playing, there's noise from other people. So yeah, that's just kind of how I've been doing it, and I'm still trying to figure that out. I've learned that a lot of the routines that I created whenever I was not single, I've been married, but whenever I was married, I haven't necessarily been able to completely carry into parenthood. And I just have to embrace a new way of doing things, and still in the midst of that. I'm like 9 weeks into this, so we're learning. Okay, this is a good one, and I didn't even think about this until I had Hudson. It says, did it hurt to pee and poop after labor? I'm due next week and I'm terrified. By the time this video is up, you've probably already had your baby. So congrats. I was not fearful about this because I didn't know it was a thing, but the first poop after you have your baby is kind of freaky. Like you're like wondering, oh my gosh, how am I gonna do this? I feel like the level of uncomfortability or pain, there was no pain for me, but uncomfortability really varies based off of if you tore, if like you were in labor for a really long time, maybe the head was down there for a lot longer than usual, I don't know. But for me, things were pretty like normal and his head wasn't down there for very long. It really healed pretty quickly, but what I didn't expect was for pooping to be more uncomfortable than sex. Isn't that strange? Yeah, the first time I went number 2, I was really scared, but what you do is you have your peri bottle, which is like the way that you clean yourself for the days following birth so that you don't necessarily like touch much down there. You just kind of like use that as you pee and it doesn't sting if you use that, at least in my experience. There's probably been various other stories where that wasn't the case, but in my experience, it was all fine and dandy in the pee department. And number 2 was the first time, but it happened. It's just the reason it's so strange, and the reason you hear women talk about this if you haven't given birth, is the sensations that you feel during like a natural labor where you're feeling everything is, well, even if you got an epidural, it still came out there and you're probably sore. So you just have similar sensations that are brought back up, like when you try to go. You're kind of squeezing, like you're pushing during labor, and you're also pushing whenever you go number 2. But it's just very small, not as huge. So it wasn't too bad. And after that first one, just kept getting easier and easier. And I never thought this was a thing, guys, but it is. And it'll get better. Just trust yourself. Even the healing process, even if you tore or something went wrong, your body will heal. You just have to give it time and be very patient with yourself in the bathroom. Maybe even spend 15 minutes on the toilet if you have to. Like, there's no shame. Do you want more kids? Nick and I definitely do want more kids. We've talked about this several times, and I feel like every time we talk about it, we have like a different answer. Because ideally, you know, people make up in their mind how many kids they would like and what they would desire for their family. But in all honesty, God really writes the story of your family. And I know that there's some people that really try to like control every aspect, but in my mom's case, she really wanted 4 kids. And after she had 2, she was like, oh my gosh, no, I don't know if I could do this like that many times. And then she had my brother, and after that, they were just done. I can't remember if like they did that willingly or if they just didn't have any more kids after that. But yeah, my mom had 3 and she wanted 4, and I think that I want 4, but we'll see. You just never know. I love so far the time that we've had with Hudson, and I feel like it's just gonna get sweeter and sweeter. Obviously there's hard parts, but I think it really depends on the day that you ask Nick and I, and honestly our opinions kind of fall on their face when it comes to like what God really wants to do with our family. So we're just kind of open. We're like, I think open to that. Obviously we're not wanting to be a family of like 10 kids because that might be a little crazy, but we'll see. We will see. Okay, I'm so glad somebody asked this, and this is one that I watched countless videos on because I was genuinely curious and I wanted to hear other experiences. So the question is, how is the first time after having a baby? And I was genuinely curious about this with so many of my favorite YouTubers. I was like looking up like, oh my gosh, you know, how is it? And I remember being very scared for this because like before I had a baby, because I had just gotten warned by a lot of women who have had children that it's awful, that they haven't been able to have sex for several months or even years. And I'm just like, those stories absolutely terrified me. And I was like determined for that, if I could have any sort of impact in that area, for that not to be the case for me. I prayed about it. I was really worried about tearing during birth, and so I was praying into it a lot, and I was just asking God to just ease my mind in that area, because I love the fact that in marriage, like, we have intimacy, not just physical intimacy, but like the deep conversations that we get to have, and like everything that makes our intimacy what it is. So whenever we are having sex, I don't like talking about this, but I know that Zach is editing this. Sorry, Zach. We're all adults here though. After about like 2 weeks, I wanted to again, which is crazy because I had always heard like you need to wait at least 6 weeks, and that's just the medical standard. But every body like goes through different ways of birth, like different experiences with birth, and some bodies take more of a hit than others as far as how your labor and delivery went. And my body was pretty much like feeling back to normal, at least down there at 4 weeks. So around 4 weeks, I told Nick, like, I would like to start trying. And it wasn't something that he was asking me to do or pressuring me into. He was honestly like, are you sure? Like, I do not want to cause anything chaotic down there or to make this not a fun experience for you. Like, we tried, and the first time, like, we kind of had to stop, and because I was just kind of like uncomfortable. It wasn't painful, but it was like uncomfortable at first, and that's kind of how I describe the first time that I had sex in general. It wasn't painful, just uncomfortable. So that's kind of like the first time. And then the second time we tried, which was like 2 days later, just made sure that like I was really relaxed, and I always work on mindset with everything. With birth, I worked on my mindset. With intimacy before we got married, I worked on mindset, like just making sure that I had a healthy mindset about everything. I've learned through the process of doing this that if my mind is in a healthy place and is focused on the positives of things, and like even if this doesn't turn out how we hope, I'm still going to try again, soon, and like hope for the best. And so we did everything that we could to just make things comfortable, and then it started feeling normal again, which was crazy. I thought that wasn't possible, honestly. After having a baby, I was like, my sex life is gonna be ruined. Like, there's no way that this is gonna feel normal, because you kind of are in your own head about things, and you're just like, oh, kids just change everything. But in reality, like, it's felt pretty much the same before we had Hudson. And I even asked Nick, like, how are things for you? Like, has things changed, at least, to your perspective? And he's like, no, honestly, I was shocked that it hasn't really changed much. And I think that a really big part of this, which I should probably do a whole nother girl talk on, is the preparation for a natural labor. Long story short, I feel like that was worth going into a little bit more detail, because I just remember really, really wishing somebody would just tell it to me straight. Like, is it awful? No, it's not awful. And I think that more women should have like a positive approach and like more of a hopeful perspective, because if you're constantly hearing stories of it being awful and terrible and just like hearing a lot of negative, then you're gonna believe that for you too. Sure, you may be in pain for several months. That might be your story, but to hear more positive stories is definitely very encouraging. And that's how I kind of prepared for labor too, is I chose not to listen to all of the crazy stories and all of the opinions from family and friends that were really concerned for me. Yeah, you're gonna be fine. Have a more positive approach and perspective to it, because that is so huge in anything in life. Like, why would you want to speak negatively over yourself and just hear negative experiences about everything? Obviously, I think it's good to be realistic about things, but what is realistic in this scenario? You don't really know. It could go great. It could not be the most amazing thing in the world, but I just feel like your mind is so powerful. So I feel like I need to do a part 2 of all of these, because there's so many good questions. This one says, how has Nick dealt with your time being taken up so much by Hudson? Does he seem lonely? Obviously, Nick's not here to answer this question. I wish he was. maybe we can talk about this in another video. But from my perspective, he seems to be completely fine with it, because he's even said before, like, I don't want you to worry about, you know, spending too much time with Hudson. Like, you have to feed him. You're his mom. Like, I expect you, like, to do what you think needs to be done with our son, like, to just be there for him. And so I think that that perspective, him having that, like, beforehand, helped him a lot. He's never really, in my perspective, very lonely. He finds things to do, and we're pretty busy with, like, work and what we do in general. So I feel like we have a pretty good balance of that, as much as you can with a young baby. We're home together a lot, and I think that helps. I would assume that if he was going to work and in the evening we only got a few hours together, then it would feel a little bit different. But we prioritize, we put things on the schedule now. Just a few weeks ago, we sat down and we tried to make a schedule together. And even prioritizing sex is, like, really important to us. So we started doing that and, like, writing that down on, like, days of the week, because I found that at night, whenever Hudson gets sleepy, I start to get sleepy and I want to go to bed early. And so we've had to kind of, like, put things down on a schedule, even things that I never thought I would schedule. That's one thing that has changed with the baby, is there's less spontaneity, but that's okay. Not everything has to be wildly spontaneous. There's definitely still ways to implement that, even with a kid. I think we're gonna just continue to learn in that area. But yeah, I think that he's doing good. Like, he's doing pretty good for how far we are into this. I feel like it hasn't even really been that long, so it's just gonna get better from here, I'm hoping. I hope you enjoyed this video. Lots of great questions. Some of the ones that are going to be covered in the next video. Is it hard to wait so long after birth to have sex? What are some ways to be intimate while waiting? Has your friendship group changed after having a baby? How do you manage baby, cooking, cleaning, laundry, everything? Is it difficult to prioritize intimacy post-birth? Any books or resources you recommend for preparing for a home birth? Lots of really good questions. And you know me, I like to talk, so especially this is just us girls here. Thanks for being part of the Hirsch Tribe. I'll see you guys on Patreon. If you're not part of that, by the way, you should look into being a part. We have a Discord where we pray for one another. We kind of catch up throughout the week if we're not on a Bible study every other week together. We're still going through Hebrews. So I'll link that down below and we can just chat on Instagram. I'm always available through the DMs there. Yeah, I'll see you on social media in the next video. All right, guys. Peace.